tuned. Listen now to Wayne McFarlane and jazz. Thank you, Wayne. I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to Conversations with Al McFarlane, broadcasting live from the Minneapolis Urban League. My guest is Roosevelt Gaines, who does placement and gets people ready for the world of work. Let me get personal with you, Roosevelt. You and I have known each other for years and years and years. My company has been one of the many companies in this neighborhood that's benefited from young people being placed in either OJT or job training or other capacities in my company with the support of the Urban League and the programs that you represent. But what's been your history? Let's go personal. You've been at this a long time. You've seen a lot of people, and you've helped a lot of people. And I thank you for all those in the community that have benefited from your expertise, your diligence, and your leadership. How did you start in this business, and what happened over the years?
Well, I mean, a lot of times you have to start with looking at yourself. You know, looking at yourself and seeing what you're doing, and if what you're doing is getting you on the right track, you know, and doing some self-evaluation, and all of a sudden realizing that what you're doing, you owe yourself better than what you're doing right now, and kind of did a 360, you know, and said, I need to do something better for myself and be a better role model for my kids and to do the right thing. So I enrolled myself in the old JETPA program years ago, and
that stood for what?
Job Training Partnership Act, and went through some.
And when was this roughly? Just
in the '60s.
In the '60s.
It was
going back a little
going
bit.
back
Okay.
away
All
to
right.
the late '60s, and met a guy, wonderful guy by the name of Elijah Mobley, who became my mentor. And after I got through the Skills Training Center up at Colfax on Lake Street, said, you know, I got this wonderful guy that I think, you know, you should meet, but, you know, he doesn't have anything right now, but you should meet him. So actually, I came to work for the Urban League, doing what I'm doing now, and I was being paid $50 a week, stipend.
Okay.
Okay, to do exactly what I'm doing now. And after that ended, I went to work for the Chamber of Commerce. I was hired by a red-headed Irishman guy by the name of Lee Madden, who kind of took me under his wings and, you know, showed me the ropes. And I started out as an employment counselor. And back then, you know, we didn't do job development. The companies pledged their jobs to it. And you're absolutely right. You and I go way back, you know, when you're actually running the newspaper out of your home. And
I think you hired and placed the very first or second employee that Insight News ever had. And we operated the business then from my dining room table, 4 or 5 blocks from here where I live today.
Yeah, and we also, I mean, back then I think we had a United Way program that funded 100% of the person's wage for up to a year. I think you were able to get, you know, most of your staff at that time because you didn't have the income to to pay salaries for them. We were able to do that, and you know, that's one of the shining moments for me. Every time I look at an Insight newspaper, I think that, you know, God, I played a role in having Insight newspaper get to where it's at today.
You played a major role.
And but yeah, I've been doing this now for 43 years.
What's your background? Where are you from? Where'd you start off?
I'm from Pensacola, Florida, Scambie County. Raised in Scambie County, one of the worst counties in the United States as far as I was concerned, because it was white drinking fountains, blacks set up at the top of the theater. You sat at the back of the bus. The Ku Klux Klan were there. My mom hauled me off to the cotton fields at 4 years old. My brother and I couldn't pick a whole lot of cotton, but we could pay for the bologna that we were going to have for lunch. So that's kind of my history. And moved here in 1949. Mom put us on a bus to send us here my dad's put us on a bus to Minnesota to come live with my mom, and this is home, this is home, and I care about this community, and my commitment is to the people of this community.
Thinking back, Roosevelt Gaines, about being a youngster in Florida in the segregated South, in the Klan-dominated South, and now we're at 2010, and we've seen 2009. We've seen a lot of changes in our lifetime, but I want you to reflect back again when you were 4 and 5, your earliest memories. You mentioned the Klan. You mentioned seeing white only and colored water fountains. You mentioned having to go to the fields. What was your picture of what the world could be? What were the limits of your imagination when you were a child based on what was presented to you at the time?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, one of my favorite people is Malcolm X. And one of the things Malcolm X says he says, quit talking about the South. He says, anytime you south of the Canadian border, you south. So, and most folks don't know this, but at one point, Minnesota had more Ku Klux Klan affiliates than any state in the Union. Okay, and that's documented in the National Minnesota Historical Society publication. So most folks don't know that. So when you see some of the behaviors that comes here in Minnesota that's happening in the South, it said they disappeared as fast as they showed up. They may have disappeared, but some of the behaviors are still underneath the surface here. So when you have folks that call you out of your race and treat you differently and don't want to see you on jobs, that's some of that old behavior. And it's still there. It's still there, and we've come a long ways, and I think the building and construction trades, I'm hearing from some of my guys, some of the things that happen to them out there in the field are, just as bad as they were back in the 50s and 60s. So, back then when I was a young kid, it was a joy to get out of the South. In fact, the folks told my dad, you got to get these 2 boys out of here if you want them to live to be adults. So that was one of the, because we didn't take any prisoners. If you called us out of our name, you had to get something back.
And your parents knew that attitude was the recipe for your own death.
The people knew Mr. Jack. That was my dad's nickname. They knew Mr. Jack. And Mr. Jack, you weren't going to do anything to his kids. You weren't going to disrupt. I don't care if you wore a hood over your head or not. My dad was going to protect his family to death. And I'm the same way, and my son's the same way, and it's family first. And, the Lord has blessed me. Al, and I was just talking to a group of kids the other day. I was a juvenile delinquent. I'm an ex-offender. I'm chemical dependent, all of the above. And I just put my faith in the Lord, and He's helped me through and molded me to the person that I am today.
So at the end of the day, right now, Roosevelt Gaines, you're very hopeful. You're positive, despite challenges, personal and public challenges, the society's barriers to our people. You found a way to both feel that a better day was ahead?
Yes.
And how do you feel right now?
Well, I think a better day is still ahead. I mean, we just have to, I believe this. You cannot blame everybody for what you do wrong. If you're smoking crack, no one's putting that pipe in your mouth. If you drop out of school, no one's making you drop out of school. If you go out and commit a crime, no one's making you commit that crime. We're all the cause of our own individual actions. And I was speaking to a group of guys from a reentry program a couple of weeks ago, and my question to them was, is there anybody in the room here to think that they were sent to prison wrongfully? And not one of those guys raised their hand.
They were there because they did something.
They were there because they did something. So you pay for what, if you're doing wrong out there, I think what's happening too, Al, is that we have, coming up as young folks, we all went to